coming with me," said the virgin Mafia boss after her in-laws shaved her and left her shamed. Abandoned on enemy territory with nothing but a thin dress and her dignity in tatters, the disgraced Mafia widow trembles in the cold night. When the most feared crime lord in the city finds her, instead of killing her, he makes her an unthinkable offer: become his wife and teach him the physical aspects of marriage, or face certain death from her former family. What she doesn't know is that he's been watching her since she was 16, obsessed with making her his own. As their arrangement of protection turns to unexpected passion, she discovers shocking photos hidden in his bedroom drawer. But when she becomes pregnant after years of being called barren, the truth explodes. Her first husband was the sterile one, and now both families will stop at nothing to control her child. As bullets fly and secrets unravel, who is really pulling the strings in this dangerous game? And how can a woman betrayed by everyone she's ever known tell if the virgin Mafia boss who claims to love her is her savior, or the architect of her destruction? Through the harsh glare of headlights, Bella fought the urge to run. Her bare feet ached against the cold pavement, and she could feel every gust of wind against her newly exposed scalp. The thin dress the Costellos had left her in offered no protection from the night air. Roman Valenti stepped fully out of the SUV, his movements deliberately slow and controlled. Even in her desperate state, Bella couldn't help but notice how he commanded attention. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark features that seemed carved from stone. His reputation preceded him: brilliant, ruthless, and notoriously private, despite his power in the territory. "Mrs. Costello!" His voice was deep and smooth like aged whiskey. Or perhaps that title no longer applies. Bella's throat tightened. The humiliation of her situation crashed over her anew, standing nearly naked before the Costellos' greatest rival, stripped of everything that had defined her life for the past 3 years. She fought to keep her voice steady. "They've made that quite clear, Mr. Valenti." His dark eyes tracked over her deliberately, taking in every detail of her state: the shaved head, the inadequate dress, the absence of shoes. His expression remained unreadable, but something dangerous flickered in his gaze. "Marco," he called without looking away from her. One of his men immediately appeared at his side. "Your jacket!" The guard shrugged out of his suit jacket and handed it to Roman, who approached Bella with measured steps. She tensed but held her ground, lifting her chin despite her vulnerability. When he draped the warm jacket over her shoulders, his hands lingered for just a moment longer than necessary. "Get in the car," he said quietly. Bella hesitated. "I don't understand. Why would you help me?" "Because the Costellos have made a grave miscalculation." His tone was matter-of-fact, but there was an undercurrent of something else, something that made her pulse quicken. "They've thrown away something valuable, thinking it would hurt me. Instead, they've handed me exactly what I want." A shiver that had nothing to do with the cold ran through her. "And what is that?" "You." The single word held volumes of meaning she couldn't quite grasp. "I've watched you for 3 years, Bella. Watched how you carried yourself with grace despite their cruelty. Watched you build alliances among the staff while Giuseppe dismissed you as simple. Watched you survive." Her mind raced. Had she truly caught the attention of Roman Valenti all this time? She'd seen him at various family functions, of course, always watching from a distance with those intense eyes. But she'd assumed he was simply monitoring his rivals, not her specifically. "Your husband's death wasn't an accident," Roman continued, his voice dropping lower. "The Costellos are fracturing from within. Giuseppe's old ways are failing, and Lucia's games are more dangerous than he knows. You're caught in the middle of their power play." Bella wrapped his guard's jacket tighter around herself, processing his words. The pieces started falling into place: Carlo's sudden recklessness, Lucia's satisfied smile during the punishment ritual, the convenient timing of it all. "Why tell me this?" she asked. "Because you deserve to know the truth, and because I'm offering you a choice." He gestured to the waiting car. "Come with me. Accept my protection. Let me show you what it means to be truly valued." The way he said "valued" sent another shiver through her. There was possession in his tone, yes, but also something that sounded remarkably like respect. A gust of wind reminded her of her precarious position. The Costellos had cast her out, leaving her with nothing. She was alone in enemy territory with no resources, no allies, and no future. Yet here stood Roman Valenti, offering, what exactly? Protection? Revenge? Something more? She studied his face in the harsh light, searching for deception, but all she found was that same intense focus she'd glimpsed from afar all these years, now directed solely at her. "If I say no," she asked, testing, "then I'll give you money, clothes, and transport to anywhere you want to go." He shrugged slightly. "But we both know that won't keep you safe from them forever, and we both know that's not what you really want." He was right. The thought of running, of living in fear of the Costellos finding her, held no appeal, and something in the way Roman looked at her, like she was a puzzle he'd been trying to solve for years, made her want to know more. "Why me?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Get in the car, Bella. Let me show you exactly why." She took a deep breath, weighing her options one final time. Then she stepped forward, allowing Roman to guide her into the luxurious interior of his SUV. As he slid in beside her, she caught a glimpse of his expression in the dim light. There was satisfaction there, yes, but also something that looked remarkably like triumph. The convoy of vehicles smoothly pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the street where the Costellos had abandoned her. Bella felt the weight of her wedding ring, the last piece of jewelry they'd left her, pressing against her finger. A reminder of everything she'd lost tonight. Or perhaps, she thought, as she caught Roman watching her with those intent eyes, a reminder of everything she stood to gain. The SUV's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating Bella's shivering form. Roman Valenti stepped out, his polished shoes crunching on the asphalt. His security team moved with practiced efficiency, creating a protective circle around the area. Their weapons weren't visible, but their stance made it clear they were armed and ready. Roman's face remained impassive as he took in Bella's appearance, her shorn head, the thin dress that offered no protection against the cold, the way she wrapped her arms around herself. Only a slight tightening around his eyes betrayed any reaction to seeing Carlo Costello's widow in such a state. "A Costello wife abandoned on my territory," he said, his deep voice betraying nothing of his thoughts. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his tailored jacket, the material worth more than what most people earned in a month. As he approached Bella, she lifted her chin, attempting to salvage what dignity remained. Even in her humiliation, something in her posture spoke of resilience. Roman draped the jacket around her shoulders, enveloping her in warmth that carried his subtle cologne. Leo, his second in command, materialized at his shoulder. "Sir," he murmured, "this has to be a trap. The timing." Roman silenced him with a slight gesture, never taking his eyes off Bella. "Tell me what happened," he commanded, his tone leaving no room for refusal. Bella's voice trembled, but remained clear as she recounted the evening's events. The family council, Giuseppe's accusations, the ritual stripping of her status. With each detail, Roman's expression grew darker, though his stance remained relaxed. He pulled out his phone, turning slightly away as he dialed. "The package our friends left requires immediate attention," he said to whoever answered. "Secure the perimeter, full protocol." He listened briefly before ending the call. When he turned back to Bella, his gaze held an intensity that made her want to step back. She forced herself to remain still as his eyes traveled over her face, analyzing, calculating. "Returning you to the Costellos would mean your death," he stated matter-of-factly. "Leaving you alone would result in the same outcome." His tone shifted, becoming final. "You're coming with me." "No, I can't." Bella's protest was cut short as Roman simply stepped forward and lifted her into his arms. She was too shocked to resist as he carried her to his vehicle, placing her carefully in the back seat before sliding in beside her. The convoy of black SUVs moved smoothly through the night. Roman's security team communicated through earpieces, ensuring their route remained secure. Inside the vehicle, the leather seats were heated, and soft classical music played through hidden speakers. "Your appearance on my territory presents two possibilities," Roman explained, his voice calm, as if discussing business. "Either it's a deadly insult from the Costellos, abandoning their cast-off on my doorstep, or it's a valuable opportunity that they've foolishly handed me." He turned to look at her. "Either way, by the same ancient laws they used to cast you out, you now belong to me." Bella watched through tinted windows as they approached a massive estate perched on the cliffs overlooking the city. The property was surrounded by walls, topped with security cameras and motion sensors. Guards patrolled with military precision, their movements coordinated and professional. The main gates were solid steel, reinforced to withstand vehicle impacts. As they swung open, Roman turned to Bella, His expression held absolute certainty as he spoke. "The moment you crossed into my territory, you became mine. Whether that proves a blessing or curse depends entirely on your cooperation." Exhaustion and emotional overload finally overwhelmed Bella's remaining resistance. She watched numbly as the gates closed behind them with a final sounding clang. The convoy proceeded up a winding driveway lined with perfectly manicured landscaping, each turn revealing more of the fortress-like mansion that would now be her cage or sanctuary. Guards stood at attention as their vehicles pulled to a stop in front of wide marble steps. The mansion loomed above them, its windows gleaming like watchful eyes in the night. Roman's security team moved with practiced coordination, establishing a protective corridor from the car to the entrance. Leo appeared at Roman's door, opening it with a slight bow. "The house is secured, sir. All protocols are in place." Roman nodded, then turned to Bella. His jacket still draped her shoulders, making her appear even smaller in its oversized embrace. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Possession, satisfaction, or perhaps something deeper that Bella was too tired to analyze. The massive front doors opened, spilling warm light onto the steps. Inside, Bella caught glimpses of crystal chandeliers and priceless artwork. The contrast between the mansion's luxury and the military precision of its security was striking. Beauty and danger intertwined, much like the man beside her. A female staff member appeared, carrying a thick blanket. Roman took it with a nod, wrapping it around Bella's shoulders over his jacket. His hands lingered briefly, and Bella couldn't tell if the gesture was meant to comfort or claim. Dawn's pale fingers crept through heavy silk, curtains, rousing Bella from fitful sleep. For a moment, she lay still in the enormous four-poster bed, surrounded by Egyptian cotton sheets and plush pillows. The room's unfamiliarity struck her first. Elegant cream walls, antique furniture, and a crystal chandelier catching morning light. Then memory crashed over her like an icy wave. Her hand flew to her head, fingers meeting the unfamiliar smoothness where her long, dark hair had been. Tears welled in her eyes as fragments of the previous night replayed. The family council, rough hands holding her down, the bite of scissors against her scalp, the cold street where they'd abandoned her. A soft knock interrupted her spiral of despair. Bella quickly wiped her eyes, calling out a shaky, "Yes?" No one entered, but when she investigated, she found a garment bag hanging on the door handle. Inside were perfectly tailored clothes in her size, a modest blue dress, delicate undergarments, and comfortable flats. A cream-colored note card bore elegant handwriting. "Join me for breakfast when you're ready. RV." The ensuite bathroom proved to be a marble-clad sanctuary. Bella stood under the rainfall shower until the water ran cold, trying to wash away the previous night's humiliation. When she emerged, she discovered the suite's walk-in closet was fully stocked, not just with clothes, but with everything she might need, including a selection of beautiful silk headscarves in various colors. She chose a dove-gray scarf, carefully arranging it to cover her shorn head. The mirror reflected back someone both familiar and strange. Still herself, but transformed by circumstance into something more fragile, yet somehow more determined. A gentle tap at the door revealed an older woman in a crisp uniform. "I'm Greta," she said with a kind smile. "Mr. Valenti asked me to escort you to breakfast when you're ready." Bella followed Greta through corridors lined with priceless artwork. The mansion's interior matched its imposing exterior. Everything spoke of old money and power, but with a modern edge that set it apart from the Costello's more traditional opulence. The terrace where Roman waited overlooked manicured gardens and the distant city skyline. He stood as Bella approached, gesturing to a chair at the glass-topped table laden with breakfast dishes. "I trust you slept well?" Bella nodded, accepting a cup of coffee from Greta before the housekeeper discreetly withdrew. Roman waited until Bella had taken a few sips before speaking. "The Costellos have made their move," he said without preamble. "They've released a statement claiming you fled after Carlo's death, abandoning your duties and breaking family bonds." His tone was clinically detached. "This means you have no protection under family law." Bella's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "They're twisting everything," she whispered. "Of course they are." Roman's expression remained neutral. "Which brings us to my proposition." He outlined the situation with business-like precision. At 30, he'd built his empire through strategic thinking rather than the brute force favored by older families. This unconventional approach, combined with his youth and notable absence of romantic entanglements, had led to whispers questioning his fitness to lead. "You've never—" Bella's voice trailed off as understanding dawned. Roman's slight nod confirmed her shock. This powerful man had remained untouched by women. "I need a wife," he stated simply. Someone who understands family politics and can navigate social obligations. Someone who can teach me the physical aspects of marriage while maintaining appropriate public appearances. His dark eyes held hers. In return, you get my protection and a position of respect. Why not choose someone willing? Bella asked. Surely there are many who would. You have qualities others lack. His cryptic response hung in the air between them. You have until evening to consider. If you refuse, I cannot protect you from the Costellos. The day passed in a blur of uncertainty. From her suite's window, Bella watched security teams patrol the grounds with military precision. Greta brought lunch and carefully casual conversation that revealed pieces of Roman's reputation. Brilliant in business, merciless to enemies, but oddly reserved with women. When Roman arrived that evening, Bella faced him squarely. What happens if I refuse? Then I arrange safe passage wherever you wish to go, he replied evenly. But without my name, you'll be dead within a week. The truth of his words settled heavily in her chest. She had no illusions about surviving alone, not with the Costello's reach. Taking a deep breath, Bella extended her hand. I accept your terms, Mr. Valenti. Instead of shaking her hand, Roman caught it in his larger one, bringing it to his lips in an old-world gesture. His lips were warm against her skin, and an unexpected shiver raced through her body at the contact. His eyes met hers over their joined hands, and for a moment something electric passed between them, something that had nothing to do with business arrangements or survival. 3 days of relative peace had lulled Bella into a false sense of security. Now sitting in Roman's armored SUV as they glided through city streets, anxiety crept back in. She adjusted the elegant silk scarf covering her growing stubble, watching the familiar cityscape pass by. The stylist understands our requirements, Roman said, not looking up from his phone. Everything will be suitable for the family gathering next weekend. His voice held no room for discussion. The boutique was a temple of luxury, all gleaming mirrors and soft lighting. The owner herself, Madame Claire, had cleared the store for their private appointment. While Roman disappeared into an adjoining office for business calls, Bella found herself surrounded by racks of designer clothing. Perhaps we should start with evening wear, Madame Claire suggested, holding up a deep burgundy gown. Mr. Valenti was very specific about the style requirements. Bella's throat tightened at the thought of being dressed like a doll for display. Could I use the restroom first? She asked, keeping her voice steady. The employee bathroom was through a back hallway. Bella's heart hammered as she noticed the service exit, its emergency bar promising freedom. She counted to 30, ensuring no one followed, then pushed through into a narrow alley. The service corridor opened onto a maze of delivery lanes and loading docks. Bella moved quickly, her borrowed flats clicking against concrete. She knew the main bus terminal was 15 blocks north. She'd checked the location obsessively on her suite's tablet, planning for this moment. 10 minutes into her escape, the hairs on her neck stood up. A black sedan crawled past the alley entrance. 2 men in suits appeared at the far end of the street. They weren't obviously looking at her, but their presence wasn't coincidental. Panic rose in her throat as she ducked into a side street. Then another. More suits appeared, forcing her to double back. Her feet burned as she pushed herself to move faster, staying in shadows when possible. The small stone church appeared like an answer to prayer. Its heavy wooden doors stood slightly ajar, welcoming her into cool darkness. Bella slipped into a back pew, trying to steady her breathing as she considered options. Her cousin Maria lived 3 hours away in Naples. If she could reach her, maybe she could hide long enough to make a real plan. The church grew darker as hours passed, her muscles cramping from stillness. As sunset painted the stained glass windows, Bella gathered her courage. She eased the door open, and her heart stopped. Roman leaned against a sleek black car directly across the street, his pose deceptively casual. His dark suit was immaculate despite the hours that had passed, not a hair out of place. Did you really think I wouldn't find you? His voice was soft, almost sad. No anger showed in his expression, just a deep disappointment that somehow felt worse. The car ride back was silent until they passed the city limits. My empire isn't built on violence, Roman finally said. It's built on information. Every street camera, every shopkeeper, every parking attendant. They're all part of my network. No one moves in my territory without my knowledge. At the estate, he led her to his private study rather than her suite. To her surprise, he knelt before her chair, removing her ruined shoes with careful hands. You've torn your feet to pieces, he murmured, cleaning blisters with surprising gentleness. The contrast between his tender touch and cold words made her shiver. The world sees you as mine now. Your only safety lies with me. He applied antibiotic cream to the worst spots. The Costellos are already asking questions about your whereabouts. Next time, he warned, I may not reach you before they do. Later that evening, Bella sat on her balcony, watching security patrols circle below. The reality of her situation pressed down like a physical weight. She had traded one cage for another, albeit a more gilded one. A disturbance at the main gate caught her attention. Guards moved with practiced efficiency, weapons drawn. Through the gathering dusk, she recognized Roman's figure striding toward the commotion. Even from her distance, she could identify the intruder. Marco, one of the Costello's most brutal enforcers. She had seen him carry out Giuseppe's punishments many times during her marriage. Roman's movement was so smooth it seemed almost casual. The gun appeared in his hand as if by magic. A single shot cracked through the evening air. Marco crumpled without ceremony. As guards moved to clean up, Roman turned, looking directly up at her balcony. Their eyes met across the distance, his gaze unwavering. The message was clear. This was the world she belonged to now. A world where violence and luxury walked hand in hand. Blood darkened the cobblestones below as Bella gripped the balcony railing, understanding with crushing clarity that her fate was now irrevocably bound to this dangerous man who claimed her as his own. The morning sun streamed through Roman's study windows as Bella entered, finding him focused intently on multiple screens displaying security footage. His jaw was set in a hard line, his usual controlled demeanor showing hints of tension. "Watch this," he commanded without looking up, pressing a button on his desk. The footage showed a dimly lit room where several Costello family members gathered. Bella recognized Giuseppe's study immediately. How many times had she stood before that massive desk, trembling as judgment was passed? Her blood ran cold as she heard their voices discussing her fate. "The traitor must be retrieved," Giuseppe's gravelly voice declared. "We'll make an example of her that no one will forget." Lucia's elegant figure leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the desk. "She knows too much. Every day she lives is a risk to our family." Roman paused the footage, turning to face Bella. "Now you understand why you cannot leave. Your former family has declared you a liability to be eliminated." Bella sank into a leather chair, her legs suddenly weak. The reality of her situation crashed over her like a wave. She'd known they meant her harm, but hearing them discuss her death so casually. "We need to accelerate our timeline," Roman continued, his voice businesslike. "I'm announcing our engagement today. You need the official protection of my name immediately." Bella nodded numbly, then gathered her courage to ask the question that had been haunting her. "And the physical aspects of our arrangement?" For the first time since she'd met him, Roman showed a flash of uncertainty. He was silent for a long moment, then spoke with surprising honesty. "I've had opportunities," he said, carefully. "Many of them, but I watched my father destroy our family through his weakness for women. He let desire cloud his judgment, trusted the wrong people, made fatal mistakes. I vowed never to let that happen to me." The vulnerability in his admission stunned her. This powerful man, feared throughout Italy, was admitting his inexperience with an openness she hadn't expected. "We should begin," she said softly. "Simple things first." Roman's study transformed into an unlikely classroom that afternoon. Bella approached it clinically, pushing aside her own complicated feelings. She showed him how to hold a woman properly, where to place his hands, how to read subtle body language. "Like this," she demonstrated, guiding his arms around her waist. His touch was hesitant at first, but he learned quickly. Too quickly. The heat of his body against hers was distracting, his natural grace, making even these basic lessons feel intensely intimate. "Kissing should start gentle," she explained, trying to maintain professional distance. "You can't rush." His lips met hers before she finished speaking. For someone who claimed no experience, he was a devastatingly quick study. The kiss deepened, his innate intensity overwhelming her attempted detachment. Heat bloomed between them, unexpected and dangerous. Roman jerked back suddenly, his carefully maintained control visibly shaken. His breathing was uneven, his eyes dark with something that made Bella's heart race. Before either could speak, an urgent knock interrupted. Leo entered with several intelligence officers, their faces grim. "Sir, you need to see this." The television screens came to life with news footage. Lucia Costello's elegant figure dominated the frame, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face as she spoke to reporters. "My beloved daughter-in-law betrayed us," she sobbed convincingly. "She stole precious family heirlooms and fled after conspiring in my son's death. The Costello family hereby places a blood bounty on Isabella Rossi. The announcement sent Roman's advisors into fierce discussion. Leo delivered more troubling news. The Costellos have allied with the Russo family. They're positioning forces along our southern border. They're using this as pretext for war, one advisor noted. The girl has become a liability. Leave us, Roman ordered sharply. The room cleared quickly, leaving Bella alone with him. He turned to her, cold determination, replacing the passion of earlier. They're using you as an excuse to move against me. From this moment on, you don't leave my sight. He led her through the mansion to his private wing, a section she'd never entered. These will be your new quarters, he indicated a suite adjoining his own. Maximum security requires maximum proximity. Maids appeared immediately, efficiently transferring her belongings from her old rooms. Bella watched them work, reality sinking in. She'd become more than a convenient arrangement for Roman. She was now the spark that might ignite a mafia war. The suite was even more luxurious than her previous rooms, but all she could focus on was the connecting door to Roman's private chambers, the same door that had been the site of their heated kiss just hours ago. Now it represented both protection and danger, safety from a week past like a dream in Roman's private wing. The opulent rooms became Bella's gilded cage, though her lessons with Roman made her confinement increasingly difficult to endure. Each evening, their sessions progressed from tentative touches to lingering kisses that left them both breathless. The chemistry between them grew more potent with each encounter, making it harder to maintain the professional distance she'd initially planned. Tonight, Roman entered their shared sitting room, looking unusually troubled. His typically immaculate appearance was slightly disheveled, his tie loosened at his throat. He headed straight for the crystal decanter, pouring himself a measure of amber liquid, a rare sight that immediately set Bella on edge. The Costello-Russo alliance is planning something significant, he said without preamble, his voice tight with tension. Our intelligence suggests they're mobilizing resources. Their lesson that evening felt different. Roman's legendary control seemed to slip as he pulled her closer than necessary during their practiced embraces. His hands trembled slightly when they traced her spine, and his kisses held an edge of desperation that hadn't been there before. "What's really troubling you?" Bella asked softly, placing her hand against his chest. Roman's admission surprised her. "They're targeting my legitimate businesses, pressuring my allies. I'm being forced to consolidate power, pull everything closer." The unusual honesty in his voice created an unexpected intimacy between them. As they progressed to more exploratory touches, the air grew thick with tension. Roman's hands grew bolder, trailing fire across her skin. The chemistry sparked between them like lightning until he suddenly jerked away, muttering something about checking security protocols before striding from the room. Bella tried to sleep but found herself tossing and turning, her body still humming from their encounter. Around midnight, the crack of distant gunfire jolted her awake. Her door burst open as Roman rushed in, weapon drawn, his expression deadly. "Stay down," he ordered, quickly securing the space with practiced efficiency. "A tactical team breached the outer perimeter. This is their first direct attack." He insisted on moving her to the panic room, leading her through darkened hallways with his body close to hers. The sound of boots on marble echoed somewhere nearby. Suddenly, shots rang out, deafening in the confined space. Roman's reaction was instantaneous. He shoved Bella against the wall, his body covering hers completely. She felt him jerk, a grunt of pain escaping his lips as a bullet meant for her found him. Instead. Despite the injury, his response was lethal and efficient. 3 shots rang out, and their attackers fell silent. Then Roman sagged against her, his breathing labored. Bella supported his weight as they made it to the panic room, helping him onto a medical table. The bullet had lodged in his shoulder, blood staining his expensive shirt. Drawing on skills learned as a Costello wife, Bella worked quickly to remove the bullet and clean the wound. Outside, the sounds of combat continued as Roman's security forces eliminated the remaining threats. He remained conscious throughout her ministrations, his eyes never leaving her face. As dawn broke, reports came in that the compound was secured. Bella helped Roman to his bed, noticing how he tried to hide his pain. While he rested, she cleaned up the medical supplies, looking for a place to store extra bandages. Opening his bedside drawer, she found a small wooden box that seemed out of place among his practical items. Something about it called to her, and despite knowing she shouldn't, she opened it. Her hands began to shake as she lifted out photographs. Dozens of them, all of her. They showed her at 16, leaving her old high school with friends. At 17, shopping at the local market. At 18, attending her cousin's wedding. All captured moments from her life long before she became Carlo Costello's wife. The images documented years of surveillance she'd never known about. Every photograph showed her in unguarded moments, laughing, deep in conversation, lost in thought. Some were clearly taken with professional equipment from a distance. Others seemed closer, more intimate. Her mind raced, trying to process what this meant. Roman had been watching her for years, before she ever knew he existed. Before the Costellos chose her for Carlo. Before everything that led her to this moment. "You weren't supposed to find those," Roman's quiet voice came from behind her. Bella turned slowly to find him awake, propped up against his pillows. His face was unreadable as he watched her hold the evidence of his long obsession. The morning light cast shadows across his features, making him look both vulnerable and dangerous in equal measure. In that moment, everything she thought she knew about their arrangement shifted. The photographs trembled in her hands as questions crowded her mind. How long had he really been watching her? Why her? And most importantly, what role had he played in the events that brought her to his door that fateful night? "How long have you been watching me?" Bella's hands trembled as she held the photographs. Each image a piece of her past she never knew was captured. Roman sat up slowly, wincing as the movement pulled at his injured shoulder. His eyes met hers, unflinching, without a trace of shame. "Since you were 16, he said quietly. "Since the first time I saw you at the Vitelli wedding and knew you were meant to be mine." The photographs scattered across the bed between them, snapshots of a life she thought had been private. Her at the cafe she used to frequent, laughing with friends outside her old high school, helping her mother in their family garden. "You were different from anyone I'd ever seen," Roman continued, his voice taking on a quality she'd never heard before, something raw and almost vulnerable. "Not trying to catch anyone's attention, not playing the games most girls did at these functions. You were just real." Bella sank into the chair beside his bed, trying to process the magnitude of his revelation. "You've been stalking me?" "Protecting you," he corrected. "Watching over you, even when I lost you to Carlo Costello." His jaw clenched at the name. "I negotiated for your hand first. Did you know that? Approached your father with an offer before the Costellos ever entered the picture. But they offered more. Money, connections, immediate status." The revelation hit Bella like a physical blow. Her arranged marriage could have gone so differently. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Would it have mattered? Roman's eyes held hers. "When I found you that night, abandoned and humiliated, would knowing about my past interest have made you trust me more? Or would it have made you run faster?" Bella remembered her failed escape attempt, how efficiently his network had tracked her. It made more sense now. He'd had years of practice monitoring her movements. "Much of my conflict with the Costellos stems from their treatment of you," Roman admitted. "Watching them break you down, day by day, watching Carlo's indifference, his mother's cruelty." His hands fisted in the sheets. "It took everything I had not to intervene." "Why didn't you take me after Carlo died?" Bella asked, voicing the question that had been forming since finding the photos. "You clearly had the means." Roman's expression softened slightly. "Because I wanted you to choose me, even if the choice was made under difficult circumstances. I didn't want to be another man who simply claimed you as property." The irony of his words wasn't lost on her. He'd still essentially coerced her into their arrangement. But there was something different in knowing the history behind it, understanding the years of patient watching and waiting that had preceded their current situation. Over the next few days, as Roman recovered from his injury, Bella found herself watching him with new awareness. She noticed things she hadn't before, how his men's respect seemed based on more than fear, the way he listened carefully to everyone who spoke to him, regardless of their rank. Leo caught her observing one day and shared stories of Roman's early days building his empire. "He's not like the old guard," Leo explained. "He understands that loyalty built on respect lasts longer than loyalty built on fear. The men follow him because he's earned it." Their intimacy lessons resumed as Roman regained his strength. But something fundamental had shifted. Bella found herself responding to his touches, not out of obligation, but genuine desire. His hands on her skin felt like fire, each kiss more desperate than the last. During one particularly intense session, Roman pulled back suddenly, his breathing ragged. The legendary control that had earned him his reputation was visibly cracking. "I've waited years to make you mine," he confessed, voice rough. "But I want all of you, not just your body surrendered out of obligation." That night, unable to sleep, Bella lay awake, contemplating the strange turn her life had taken. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Opening the door, she found Roman standing there, looking unusually uncertain. "I need to show you something," he said, leading her to his office. From a hidden wall safe, he removed a worn leather portfolio. Inside were documents that told another story of his silent presence in her life. Acquisition papers for her father's struggling business, regular deposits to her parents' accounts, protection arrangements for her entire family, all dated throughout her marriage to Carlo. "While you belong to him," Roman explained, his voice thick with emotion, "I made sure your family was protected. Not because I expected anything in return, but because anything precious to you became precious to me." Bella traced the papers with trembling fingers. Years of mysterious good fortune suddenly making sense. Her father's business hadn't simply gotten lucky with investors. Her parents' ability to move to a safer neighborhood hadn't been just good timing. Looking up at Roman, she saw past the dangerous exterior for the first time, recognizing the depth of devotion that had driven him all these years. Without prompting or pretense, she reached for him, initiating a kiss that was entirely her own choice. The morning sun streamed through Bella's windows, catching on something glinting by her bedside. A small velvet box sat innocently on her nightstand, accompanied by a handwritten note in Roman's precise script. "What was once arrangement should now be choice. Dinner tonight, my balcony." Her hands trembled as she opened the box. The ring inside took her breath away. A delicate platinum band holding a perfect oval diamond, flanked by smaller sapphires. Unlike the gaudy Castello ring that had felt like a shackle, this one seemed designed specifically for her, elegant but understated. Throughout the day, Bella found herself constantly touching the ring box in her pocket, her mind drifting to the previous night's revelations. The photographs, the years of silent protection, the depth of Roman's patient devotion. It painted their forced arrangement in an entirely different light. By evening, she had made her decision. She dressed with care, choosing a deep blue dress that matched the sapphires. The ring slipped perfectly onto her finger, as if it had always belonged there. Roman's private balcony offered a stunning view of the Mediterranean at sunset. He had transformed the space with intimate lighting and flowers. A small table was set for two, with champagne chilling nearby. "You're wearing it," he noted softly as she approached, his eyes fixed on her hand. "It feels right," Bella replied, surprising herself with how true the words were. Over dinner, Roman opened up more than he ever had before. He spoke of his childhood in the sprawling Valenti estate, watching his father's descent into obsession and violence after his mother's betrayal. "She left when I was 8, Roman revealed, his usual controlled expression slipping to show old pain. "Ran off with one of my father's associates. It broke something in him. He started seeking comfort in increasingly dangerous women. Each betrayal made him more violent, more paranoid." "Is that why you avoided relationships?" Bella asked gently. Roman's jaw tightened. "I watched desire destroy him. Women became his weakness, clouding his judgment until he nearly lost everything our family had built. I swore I would never let that happen to me." "Yet you watched me for years," Bella observed. "The irony isn't lost on me," he admitted with a slight smile. "Perhaps I became what I feared, obsessed, possessive, but I'd like to think I channeled it differently than my father did." After dinner, they moved to the comfortable seating area where their intimacy lessons usually took place. Tonight felt different, charged with new understanding and genuine desire. Roman's hands had grown more confident in their exploration of her body. Bella guided him with soft instructions that soon gave way to gasps of pleasure as he proved an attentive student. When his lips found her neck, she arched into him instinctively. The passion between them built naturally until they were on the edge of something more intimate than they'd yet attempted. To Bella's surprise and confusion, Roman suddenly pulled back, his breathing heavy. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked, self-consciousness creeping in. "No," he assured her quickly, brushing her cheek with unexpected tenderness. "You're perfect. That's why I want our first time to be perfect too. Not rushed, not clouded by fear or obligation. When I finally make you mine completely, I want no doubt in either of our minds." The next morning brought unwelcome news. Roman's intelligence network reported that the Castello-Russo coalition was pressuring smaller families to choose sides. They were using Bella as propaganda, claiming Roman had kidnapped Carlo's grieving widow to dishonor their family. Roman immediately called his captains for an emergency strategy meeting. The tension in the room was palpable as they discussed options for dealing with the growing threat. "Perhaps," one captain suggested hesitantly, "if we return the widow—" He didn't finish the sentence. The temperature seemed to drop as Roman approached him with lethal grace. "Suggest separating me from what's mine again," Roman said, with chilling calm, "and your family will receive your remains in pieces." Bella, who had been observing quietly from her place beside Roman, placed a gentle hand on his arm. The effect was immediate, his tension visibly eased at her touch, surprising everyone present. "Instead of hiding me," she suggested, her mind working strategically, "why not use me? Announce our engagement publicly. Let me tell my story, how the Costellos treated me, how you offered protection when they cast me out." The captains exchanged impressed looks at her suggestion, but more telling was the way Roman looked at her, possessive and proud, making it clear to everyone present that their arrangement had evolved into something far more genuine and dangerous than either had anticipated. The camera flashes exploded like lightning as Roman helped Bella from the limousine. Milan's most prestigious restaurant, Il Giardino Dorado, glowed warmly against the twilight sky. Reporters pressed against the velvet ropes, shouting questions about their whirlwind engagement. Roman's arm wrapped possessively around Bella's waist, his touch both protective and claiming. She wore a stunning emerald silk gown that whispered wealth and elegance, her short hair now styled fashionably to make her previous humiliation appear a chosen statement. "Mr. Valenti, is it true you've been courting Mrs. Costello since before her husband's death?" "Bella, did you flee the Costello family willingly?" Roman guided her through the chaos with practiced ease, his expression remaining impassive except for the slight tightening of his jaw at the accusations. Inside, the maître d' whisked them to a private dining room where Milan's most influential families waited. The space hummed with power and old money. Bella recognized faces from both legitimate business circles and the shadowy underworld that truly controlled the city. Roman had orchestrated this gathering carefully, ensuring maximum impact for their first public appearance. "You look beautiful," he murmured in her ear before they entered, his breath warm against her skin. "Show them why you're worth going to war over." Bella slipped seamlessly into the role of charming hostess, her years as a Mafia wife evident in every graceful interaction. She navigated complicated family politics with diplomatic skill, sharing carefully edited versions of her story. The Costellos were traditional in their expectations, she explained delicately to a group of sympathetic wives. "When I failed to provide an heir, they chose to end our connection rather dramatically." "Lucia always was a cruel woman," one elderly Donna whispered, patting Bella's hand. "Such old-world brutality. Thank heavens Roman saved you from that barbaric family." Throughout the evening, Bella felt Roman's gaze following her. Each time she glanced his way, his dark eyes held such naked possession it made her breath catch. The practiced society smile she wore softened into something genuine whenever their eyes met. "Roman has been incredibly kind," she told an influential banker's wife. "He offered protection when I had nowhere else to turn. Love was unexpected, but sometimes fate has other plans." The woman sighed romantically. "Such a beautiful story, and much better suited than that horrible Costello match." In the limousine afterward, the professional facade crumbled. Roman pulled her onto his lap, his hands tangling in her hair as he kissed her with unprecedented hunger. Gone was the careful restraint of their practice sessions. This was raw need. "Do you know how hard it was watching you charm them all tonight?" he growled against her throat. "Seeing every man in that room want what's mine," Bella gasped as his teeth grazed her pulse point. "I only saw you." They barely made it inside the estate, leaving a trail of clothing from the front door to his bedroom. When she reached for his shirt buttons, Roman caught her hands. "I should tell you something," he said, vulnerability flickering across his features. This will be my first time." Bella's heart squeezed at his admission. She kissed him softly, reverently. "Then let me show you." She guided him with gentle instruction that soon gave way to instinct. His hesitant touches grew bolder as she responded with encouraging sighs. When he finally entered her, the last threads of his control snapped. "Mine," he breathed against her skin. "Finally mine." Afterward, they lay tangled in silk sheets, her head on his chest as he stroked her back. The usual tension in his body had melted away, replaced by languid satisfaction. "I never wanted anyone until you," Roman confessed into the darkness. "For years, I watched you belong to another man, knowing you were meant to be mine." Bella pressed closer, understanding now why he had waited so long to claim her completely. This vulnerability, this surrender of control, It went against everything he had built himself to be. The peaceful moment shattered as Roman's phone vibrated on the nightstand. Bella watched his expression harden as he listened to Leo's report. Understood. Increase surveillance and bring me the full analysis in the morning. He ended the call, pulling Bella closer as he explained. We intercepted Costello documents. They're planning something at the harbor meeting next week. His fingers traced idle patterns on her skin as he added, but now we'll be ready. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we plan our counterattack. Bella curled into his protective embrace, marveling at how completely her world had transformed. She had entered this arrangement as a desperate victim, expecting at best a cold business partnership. Instead, she had found passion, purpose, and most surprisingly, love with the one man everyone believed incapable of it. Bella's hands trembled as she stared at the pregnancy test, the 2 pink lines stark against the white plastic. After 3 years of being called barren, of enduring the Costellos' cruel whispers and public humiliation, here was proof that they had been wrong all along. She sank onto the marble bathroom floor, her mind whirling with conflicting emotions. Wonder battled with fear, joy clashed with uncertainty. This child, Roman's child, would be born into a world of danger and violence, yet something fierce and protective already stirred in her heart. The private clinic was discreet, tucked away in an exclusive neighborhood. Dr. Elena Martinez reviewed her medical history with professional detachment until she reached the notes about Bella's previous fertility issues. Mrs. Valenti, she said, looking up from the file, based on these tests, there's no indication you ever had fertility problems. It's highly likely the issue was with your previous husband. The words hit Bella like a physical blow. All those years of blame, of ritual humiliation, of being treated as defective, and Carlo had been the one unable to conceive. You're approximately 3 weeks pregnant, Dr. Martinez continued. Everything looks perfectly normal. I'd like to see you again in 2 weeks for a more detailed scan. Bella walked through the rest of the day in a daze, her mind racing as she planned how to tell Roman. She arranged for his favorite meal to be served on their private balcony, overlooking the twinkling lights of the city below. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of purple and gold as she waited, absently touching her still flat stomach. Roman arrived precisely at 7, his sharp eyes taking in the intimate setting. He loosened his tie, studying her face. Something's different about you. I wanted to have a special dinner, Bella said, trying to keep her voice steady. Tell me what's troubling you. It wasn't a request. Bella took a deep breath, her heart pounding. I'm pregnant. Roman went completely still. The usual calculation in his dark eyes gave way to something she'd never seen before, raw, unfiltered emotion. In one fluid movement, he was on his knees before her, pressing his face against her abdomen. A child, he whispered, his voice rough with wonder. Our child. His hand spanned her waist possessively. When he looked up, the vulnerability in his expression took her breath away. This was Roman stripped of all his careful control, all his strategic thinking. This was simply a man discovering he would be a father. His protective instincts kicked in almost immediately. Within hours, he had arranged for the top maternal specialists in Europe to be on call. Security protocols were enhanced, with additional teams assigned specifically to Bella's protection. That night, Roman held her as if she were made of precious glass. His hands constantly drifted to her stomach, and he spoke softly of their future, nursery plans, education strategies, legacy preparations. She'd never seen him so openly happy. I'll give this child everything, he promised. No one will ever make them feel unwanted or insufficient. The following weeks brought dramatic changes. Roman initiated contact with several rival families, seeking peaceful resolutions to long-standing conflicts. He spent hours in meetings, methodically building a network of alliances that would protect their growing family. Bella's early pregnancy symptoms began to manifest: morning sickness, fatigue, and heightened emotions. Roman was attentive to every detail, ensuring her comfort while simultaneously orchestrating his diplomatic campaign. 1 month after their discovery, they sat together in his study, reviewing security arrangements for the upcoming peace negotiations. Maps and dossiers covered his desk as Leo briefed them on potential scenarios. Are you sure these meetings are wise? Bella asked, touching Roman's arm. The risks. Roman took her hand and placed it over his heart. Everything I've built has been leading to this. You, our child, our future. I'll burn the world to ashes before I let anyone threaten what's mine. Leo cleared his throat, holding up his phone. Sir, we just received word. The Costellos are sending a representative to the negotiations. They're claiming they want to resolve the situation. Roman's expression darkened as he processed this unexpected development. Which representative? They haven't specified yet, Leo replied, but they're insisting on participating in the main session. Bella stood by the window, watching security patrols circle the estate grounds. Her hand rested protectively over her stomach, where their miracle grew, despite all odds. Roman and Leo's voices faded into background noise as she observed the sunset painting the sky blood red. The grand ballroom of the Intercontinental Hotel buzzed with controlled tension as representatives from the 6 most powerful Mafia families gathered for peace negotiations. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over marble floors and ornate furnishings, the luxury a thin veneer over the deadly power dynamics at play. Roman guided Bella through the space with a possessive hand at the small of her back. Her ivory dress elegantly showcased her small baby bump, a deliberate statement of their growing dynasty. As they passed through multiple security checkpoints, Bella felt eyes following their every move. In the massive lobby, she caught sight of a familiar face that made her blood run cold. Stefano Costello, her former brother-in-law, watched her with predatory calculation. His presence here was unexpected. The Costellos had sent no warning about which representative would attend. His lip curled slightly as his gaze dropped to her belly. "Ignore him," Roman murmured, steering her toward the conference room. "He's here to provoke a reaction." The main session began with elaborate formalities, kisses on cheeks, firm handshakes, careful compliments delivered in multiple languages. Belle observed how each family positioned themselves, noting the subtle alliances revealed by body language and seating arrangements. Roman commanded attention effortlessly as he laid out his vision for territorial stability. His approach was measured yet authoritative, offering reasonable compromises while subtly reminding everyone of his considerable power. He spoke of modernization, of moving beyond old blood feuds into more profitable cooperation. "The old ways of constant conflict drain our resources," he explained, his deep voice carrying easily through the room. "Strategic alliances benefit everyone at this table." Bella couldn't help comparing his diplomatic skill to the Costello approach she'd witnessed during her marriage. Their reliance on threats and intimidation seemed crude in comparison. Where they would have pounded the table, Roman simply raised an eyebrow. Where they would have issued ultimatums, he offered choices that somehow all led to his desired outcome. During a break in negotiations, Bella's pregnancy demanded a bathroom visit. Elena, one of Roman's most trusted female guards, accompanied her down the private hallway reserved for conference attendees. The marble corridor was silent except for their footsteps and the distant murmur of voices from the main room. They were halfway to their destination when Elena suddenly stumbled, her hand flying to her throat. The water bottle she'd been drinking from dropped to the floor as she collapsed. Before Bella could cry out, strong arms grabbed her from behind. A sweet-smelling cloth pressed against her face, she fought instinctively, driving her elbow back and hearing a grunt of pain. But the chloroform worked quickly, making her movements uncoordinated. The world began to fade at the edges as she tried to scream through the cloth. Her last conscious thought was of her baby before darkness claimed her. The steady motion of a vehicle brought her back to consciousness. Her wrists were bound with soft rope, and her head throbbed. As her vision cleared, she found Stefano Costello watching her from the opposite seat of what appeared to be a luxury SUV. "Finally awake," he said, his smile never reaching his eyes. "My brother's widow, carrying the Valenti heir. How convenient for all our plans." They arrived at an elegant villa, surrounded by heavily armed guards. Bella was escorted to a beautifully appointed bedroom suite, clearly prepared for a long-term guest, but with reinforced windows and a heavy lock on the door. Hours passed before Lucia Costello swept in, still wearing her designer suit from the negotiations. Her perfectly made-up face held the same cold satisfaction Bella remembered from the night of her punishment. "Poor dear," Lucia said, settling gracefully into an armchair. "There's something you should know about your marriage to my Carlo." She withdrew a medical file from her bag, holding it just out of Bella's reach. "My son was diagnosed with sterility 3 years before your marriage. We knew you weren't to blame for the lack of heirs, but someone had to be the scapegoat when our heir died childless." The revelation hit Bella like a physical blow. All those years of humiliation, of brutal blame, of being treated as defective. They had known the truth all along. "Imagine our surprise," Lucia continued, malicious pleasure evident in her tone. "When we learned the supposedly barren widow carries a child. Roman's seed succeeded where my son's failed, which makes this baby extremely valuable to us." After Lucia departed, Stefano visited to explain their intentions. The child would be raised as a Costello, uniting both families' bloodlines and claims to power. They would allow Bella to live and help raise the baby, assuming she cooperated fully. The alternative would be forced compliance until delivery, followed by her disposal. Left alone, Bella methodically searched the room for weaknesses or escape routes. Behind a loose panel near the window, she discovered a hidden phone. Opening it revealed dozens of photos, documentation of Carlo's final days alive. Her hands trembled as she swiped through the images. There was Carlo entering a warehouse, Carlo meeting with unknown men, and then Roman. Roman was there, watching from shadows, his expression focused and predatory. The final photo showed him standing over Carlo's body, satisfaction evident in his cold smile. Bella slid to the floor, her world tilting on its axis. The evidence confirmed her worst fears. Roman had orchestrated Carlo's death. Every moment since then came into question. Had he planned this from the beginning? Was their love real, or just another calculated move in his long game? Footsteps approached her door. She quickly hid the phone back in its hiding place, her mind racing with doubt and betrayal as the lock turned. 3 days of captivity had taken their toll, but Bella sat straight-backed in the estate's sunroom, her untouched plate a silent protest. Morning light filtered through ornate windows, casting patterns across the elegant breakfast spread that she refused to acknowledge. Lucia Costello observed her from across the table, sipping her espresso with practiced grace. "You can starve yourself if you wish," she said, setting down her cup with a delicate clink. "But consider the child. Roman's spawn, it may be, but Costello blood can be reclaimed with proper upbringing." Bella's hand instinctively moved to her stomach. Even after days without proper food, she could feel the slight swell of her pregnancy. She'd managed small bites when alone, enough to sustain the baby, but refused to give Lucia the satisfaction of seeing her eat. Through carefully crafted questions and observed reactions, Bella gradually assembled pieces of the Costello's plan. They would announce her willing return, claiming she fled Roman's violent nature to seek sanctuary with her former family. The story would paint Roman as the villain, the brutal crime lord who seduced and kidnapped a grieving widow. After the birth, Lucia explained with chilling casualness, "You'll have a choice. Publicly renounce Roman and raise the child as a true Costello, or suffer an unfortunate complication in childbirth. Either way, the baby becomes ours." Reports filtered in through staff conversations and news broadcasts. Roman had unleashed unprecedented devastation on Costello holdings. Warehouses burned through the night, key lieutenants vanished without trace, and systematic destruction erased generations of Costello power. Every alliance Roman had built, every favor he could call in, focused on a single purpose: finding her. Between overheard guard conversations and careful observation, Bella discovered crucial details about Carlo's death. The photos she'd found told only part of the story. Carlo had arranged the warehouse meeting, bringing armed men to what was supposed to be peaceful territory negotiations. He had planned to eliminate Roman as a rival, but Roman's intelligence network had anticipated the trap. Carlo died in the resulting firefight, not a calculated execution, but the consequence of his own failed ambush. Bella began working on the household staff, employing techniques she'd learned from observing Roman's strategic manipulation. She offered kindness to servants used to harsh treatment, carefully placed information to create sympathy for her situation, and watched for signs of disloyalty to the Costellos. Her efforts revealed that Maria, Lucia's personal maid, particularly resented her employer's cruelty. Years of verbal abuse and witnessing Lucia's machinations had left Maria bitter and willing to help. Through this alliance, Bella gained small freedoms within the estate: longer walks in the garden, access to different rooms, details about guard rotations. During a supervised phone call meant to prove her alive to Roman, Bella embedded coded messages about her location, references to specific childhood memories they discussed, subtle hints about the estate's distinctive architecture, details only Roman would recognize from his years of watching her. As days passed, she uncovered the full scope of Lucia's manipulations. The family matriarch had orchestrated events from the shadows for years, even manipulating Carlo into the fatal ambush attempt. Her ultimate goal was control of both families through Bella's child, using ancient traditions and carefully crafted alliances to seize power. On the 6th evening, Bella stood at her bedroom window, watching guards patrol with increasing anxiety. Staff whispered about Roman's ruthless elimination of Costello allies, his methodical destruction of their network bringing him closer to discovering her location. The man they described seemed more monster than human, systematically dismantling everything the Costellos had built with cold precision. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Maria slipped inside, pressing a phone into Bella's hands with trembling fingers. A single message glowed on the screen from an unknown number. Wear the blue dress tomorrow. Be ready at midnight. He comes for what is his. Hope flared in Bella's chest as Maria hurried away. She placed her hand protectively over her growing belly, understanding flowing through her like warmth after winter. Whatever complicated truths lay in Roman's past actions, one thing had become crystal clear. He would tear apart the world to reclaim her and their child. The estate hummed with nervous energy as sunset painted the sky in shades of blood red. Guards doubled their patrols, weapons visible at their hips. Through her window, Bella watched black SUVs arrive with reinforcements, the Costello's growing fear of Roman's approach evident in every preparation. The grandfather clock's deep chimes echoed through the marble hallways, marking 11. Bella's fingers trembled slightly as she fastened the delicate buttons of the blue silk gown that had appeared mysteriously in her closet that morning. The fabric whispered against her skin as she moved, concealing the small but sharp letter opener she'd secured in its folds. Throughout the day, she'd noted peculiarities in the estate's security pattern. Despite the ongoing threat from Roman, guard rotations seemed unusually light, concentrated mainly around the perimeter rather than internal corridors. Either the Costellos had grown overconfident or something else was at play. Standing before the mirror, Bella touched her growing belly, drawing strength from the life within. Her reflection showed a woman transformed, no longer the frightened victim the Costellos had abandoned months ago. Roman's influence had taught her to observe, strategize, and survive. The first explosion came just before midnight, distant enough to seem like thunder, until the second blast rattled the windows in their frames. The estate's alarm system screamed to life, its wailing siren triggering immediate chaos. Shouts and running footsteps echoed through the corridors as guards abandoned their posts to respond to multiple breach points. Bella moved swiftly, implementing the escape plan she'd mentally rehearsed dozens of times. The confused guards at her door had already run toward the main security center, leaving her path temporarily clear. She navigated the familiar hallways with careful precision, avoiding the main staircases where reinforcements would likely gather. As she rounded a corner near the service entrance, a familiar figure appeared, Lucia Costello, her usual elegant composure fractured by urgency. Before Bella could retreat, the older woman spotted her. With surprising strength, Lucia seized Bella's arm, dragging her toward what appeared to be a concealed door. "You're coming with me," Lucia hissed, producing a small key fob that opened the hidden entrance to a fortified panic room. "I won't let him take my insurance policy." Inside the secure space, monitors displayed security feeds from around the estate. Bella watched Roman's forces execute a precisely coordinated attack, systematically dismantling the Costello defenses. The methodical efficiency was breathtaking and terrifying. "Look at him," Lucia sneered, gesturing to a screen showing Roman personally leading an assault team. "The great modernizer, proving he's just another brutal thug like the rest. This is exactly what I needed." "What are you talking about?" Bella demanded, though pieces were already clicking into place. Lucia's laugh held no warmth. "You think I cared about Carlo? About Giuseppe's outdated notions of family honor? Everything. The alliance with the Russos, your marriage to Carlo, even his death. It was all orchestrated. Once Roman eliminates Giuseppe tonight, both families will be in chaos, and I'll emerge as the power behind your child's claim to both thrones." The older woman reached into a drawer, producing a syringe. "Now be a good girl and take a little nap until this is finished." Bella's hand tightened around the letter opener, concealed in her dress. Months of observation and learning from Roman had taught her to wait for the perfect moment. As Lucia stepped forward with the syringe, Bella struck, not with the blade, but with a precise kick to the knee that sent the older woman stumbling. They grappled briefly, Bella's pregnancy making her movements more careful, but her determination fiercer. Using techniques she'd absorbed from watching Roman's men train, she managed to twist Lucia's arm behind her back, forcing her to drop the syringe. Within minutes, she had the family matriarch secured with heavy decorative cords from the panic room's window treatments. Picking up Lucia's phone, Bella dialed the number she'd memorized from their supervised calls. Roman answered immediately. "West Wing, third panel past the conservatory entrance," she said without preamble. "Hidden door with biometric lock." While waiting, Bella retrieved a guard's discarded weapon, keeping it trained on Lucia. The older woman had fallen silent, but her eyes burned with calculating hatred. The security door's elaborate locking mechanism shrieked in protest as Roman's team breached it. He entered first, weapon ready, expression transforming from cold focus to fierce relief at the sight of Bella. In 3 long strides, he reached her, pulling her into a protective embrace while keeping his gun aimed at Lucia. The press of his body against hers felt like coming home, even as questions burned in her mind. "The photos in the warehouse," she said quietly. "With Carlo." Roman's arm tightened around her. "He arranged the meeting to kill me, brought armed men to what was supposed to be peaceful territory negotiations. My intelligence network discovered the plan, but I attended anyway. I needed to end his threat to my empire." His voice roughened. "I would have waited forever for you, watching from a distance, but when they threw you away, fate gave me the opportunity I dreamed of." Outside the panic room, the sounds of combat had ceased. Roman's men efficiently rounded up surviving Costello lieutenants, bringing them to witness their leader's declaration. Roman's voice carried clearly through the assembled crowd. "She is mine, as I am hers. Touch her again, and there won't be enough left of your bloodline to bury." Bella leaned against the balcony railing, her hand resting on her prominent baby bump as she watched the sunset paint the cliffside in brilliant golds and pinks. At 7 months pregnant, she had grown accustomed to the constant movement of their active child, each kick a reminder of the miraculous journey that had brought her here. Below, sleek black vehicles departed through the estate's fortified gates, representatives from the last remaining families who had spent the day finalizing territorial agreements with Roman. The landscape of power had shifted dramatically in the 3 months since the Costello Empire's fall. Where chaos might have reigned, Roman's strategic brilliance had instead created stability. She smiled, remembering how smoothly he had transitioned from vengeance to reconstruction. Those Costello soldiers, who pledged loyalty, were carefully integrated into his organization, their skills and connections strengthening rather than weakening his empire. It was a masterclass in modern leadership, building something stronger from the ruins of the old ways. The baby kicked particularly hard, making Bella laugh softly. She had just started massaging the spot when warm hands covered hers, Roman's solid presence enveloping her from behind. "Active tonight," he murmured, splaying his fingers protectively over their child. Even now, months into her pregnancy, his wonder at feeling their baby move hadn't diminished. "Like father, like child," Bella teased, "always planning the next move." Roman's chest rumbled with quiet laughter as he pressed a kiss to her temple. "Speaking of moves," he said, "I have something to show you." He led her through their private wing, past the master suite, to a previously sealed section of the house. When he opened the double doors, Bella gasped. The nursery was a masterpiece of elegant comfort. Soft cream walls provided a peaceful backdrop for carefully chosen furniture in warm woods. A plush rocking chair sat beside floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sea. Everything spoke of security and love, from the state-of-the-art monitoring system disguised as decorative molding to the hand-knotted carpet from Italy. But what drew Bella's attention was the large portrait hanging above the antique crib. Her hands flew to her mouth as she recognized her parents' faces beside her own, captured in oils with extraordinary skill. The artist had perfectly rendered her father's kind eyes and her mother's gentle smile. "Your family arrives next week," Roman said softly, his arms encircling her from behind. "I've had the East Wing renovated for them. They'll be protected here, part of our child's daily life." Tears spilled down Bella's cheeks as she turned in his embrace. This man, who had orchestrated empires and commanded armies, had also secretly arranged for her greatest wish to come true. "When did you plan all this?" she asked, gesturing to both the nursery and the portrait. "I started the preparations the day you told me about the baby," Roman admitted. "The portrait took longest, finding the right artist, providing references without alerting you. Your mother sent some old family photos when I contacted them about moving here." Bella traced his jaw wonderingly. "You've been in touch with my parents all this time?" Roman nodded. They needed to understand that their daughter wasn't just safe, but cherished, that their grandchild would grow up knowing both sides of their heritage. His expression softened. "Your father asked good questions. Hard questions. I respected that." Bella could imagine those conversations. Her protective father facing down one of the most dangerous men in Europe, concerned only for his daughter's happiness. The fact that Roman had undertaken those discussions, knowing the importance of family connections, moved her deeply. "Who would have thought," she whispered against his lips, "that the virgin Mafia boss who claimed me at my lowest moment would become my greatest love?" Roman's arms tightened possessively around her as he smiled, that rare, gentle expression reserved only for her. His hand found its familiar place over their child as he pulled her closer. "I've known you were mine since the moment I first saw you," he said. Everything else, every move, every strategy, every battle, was just finding the path back to what fate always intended. When he kissed her, Bella melted into his embrace, marveling at how completely her life had transformed. The man the world feared as a ruthless strategist was, with her, capable of infinite tenderness. His legendary control dissolved into passionate devotion behind closed doors. The empire he'd built, through calculated precision, now bent itself toward protecting the family they were creating together. The baby kicked against Roman's palm, making them both smile into their kiss. Here in this room, prepared with such love and care, surrounded by symbols of family past and future, Bella felt the last pieces of their story falling perfectly into place. From the darkness of her lowest moment had emerged a love powerful enough to reshape empires, tender enough to heal old wounds, and strong enough to forge something entirely new from the ashes of what came before. Roman's kiss deepened, and Bella surrendered to the passion that still sparked between them, as fierce and true as the day he first claimed her as his own.